Hey guys, it's the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for May 2nd, 2024. We're going to be talking more 2024 NFL draft grades. And if you're wondering, hey, didn't you do this already? Well, we didn't have our special guest Charlie Campbell on to discuss the grades. So we're going to do that with Charlie. Before we introduce Charlie, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would mean a lot to us. Speaking of the merch store, if you're watching on YouTube, see that Charlie is wearing his free Gruden shirt. And I would be wearing a shirt of ours as well, except we had an accident with one of the kids. So that's in the wash right now. But yeah, you can get one of those shirts in the merch store. That would help us out a lot. Another way to help us out is doing super chats and super stickers. We had some great ones last week. Kevin Kovac, Degeneron, Slew, John Sanders, Slew this week with the 555 yesterday, Germ for $3 on Sunday. As I always say, these YouTube ads pay nothing. The last time we didn't have any super chats or super stickers on our show, YouTube ads paid us like 75 cents. So I always joke that like you can find you can do a better job of getting money just walking down the street and finding change than getting paid with YouTube ads. So whatever you guys can do to support us, we would be really appreciative of that. Something else you guys can do is buy my new book, Jerks of the College Years. It's on Amazon. If you like Jerks of the Week at all, I think you'll like this book. As you can see, it's rated 5 stars, so it must be really good. Really, just buying this would help us out as well. I spent like 20 years writing this book. Not obviously not every day. That'd be quite sad and almost like George R. R. Martin with the 6th book. But it was like here and there, like once in a while, I'd work on it, and finally I got it released. These are my stories from my college years, and it's written in Jerks of the Week type of format. So, like I said, if you like that, you'll like this. But without further ado, we introduce Charlie Campbell, senior NFL draft analyst at WalterFootball.com. Charlie had the most accurate NFL mock draft for 2024 on anywhere. I was looking at like every single mock draft, and the report will be released tomorrow. By the way, Charlie had 13 correct in his first round, and no one else had 12. I only found one person who had 11. That was Peter Schrager. Jacob had 10. I think Albert Breer had 10, and then like that was it. 10 and above. I couldn't find anyone else. So Charlie with his magnificent mock draft. Once again, not a surprise. Charlie, how are you?
Thank you. Yeah, great. It's been a real fun draft season, and still a lot to kind of digest. One of the things that I really enjoy at the end of the draft is but after doing the why the slides and why undrafted series, to kind of review why certain things happen in the draft and things that are kind of go on behind closed doors, and as far as why players fall because of medical or character and stuff that doesn't really get released as much. So it's fun to do those. And then we also, with our season previews, I do rookie forecasts, which kind of look at the draft class again and how they could develop for teams. And so that's really fun for me to kind of spend a month digging into what just happened, as opposed to just, trying to consume it all rapid fire as the picks come off the board. So definitely, if you're a fan of the draft, we'll have a lot of great content on it here in the weeks to come.
Always love the why the slide and why undrafted. I always try to guess like why they slid or went undrafted. I'm like I wonder if that's correct. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. It's always a great surprise. I always love reading those.
And one thing I would say also is Walt and I, in some ways, probably should get credit for an extra one in the first round, because we both had Xavier Leggett going 33 to the Panthers. And so whether he was taken 33 or 32, we got that pick right. So in some ways, we kind of deserve some extra credit there.
That's a good point. I've kind of forgot about that. So not everyone has the second round, so it's
Right.
kind of like that. That's why I don't count it for scoring. But you're right. I mean that's definitely something that we got right as well. I remember just pinpointing Leggett to the Panthers because he said that he visited the Panthers 4 times, which is I was like how's that? I know he's like a local prospect, so I guess it doesn't count as top 30 visits. But I mentioned that on the show a couple weeks ago. And I think it was Ben Wassley who was on. He was like, how's that possible? Is it really possible that he visited the team 4 times before getting to the grades?
I'm guessing that he's probably lumping in different interviews, whether it's like uh, maybe going out to dinner before the pro day, the night before the pro day, things like that, maybe private workout and a team visit, or, I bet he's just kind of lumping all that kind of pre-draft stuff into that one kind of visit total. So that would be my guess, because teams aren't allowed to have prospects go that many times to the facility before the draft.
Yeah, my guess is like, yeah, that you're probably right about that. My other guess is like he kept driving by the stadium and was like, guys, please draft me, and like, so, and yeah, playing that like having a boombox in the air like you see in those '80s movies.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're right, but I would love to know exactly what happened. If that were the case, that'd be great. We have a few questions before we begin. Stanley asking, what's your thoughts on Andrew Phillips, who got drafted by the Giants? Charlie, I believe you had a stock report on him like a week or two before the draft. But yeah, what do you think about Phillips to the Giants?
Yeah, I mean, I think where they got him in the third round was fair value, because there were some mocks and some people in the media talking about him maybe sneaking into the first or going top 40. And I had not thought that, so I reached out to team people and asked, and they said, no, that's too high. He won't go that high, but he's a nice player, was the response. So I think he could compete to be a starting nickel for the Giants as a rookie and then maybe grow from that role. But where they got him at 70 overall, I think is a nice value for them. And I think there's no reason to think that that was a mega reach, or wasn't a big huge steal, but it was, I think, solid value for that pick.
Yeah, much better than borderline first round, getting him in the third. Matthias isn't asking, Walt, did you see the video the Jets released that showed the war room and then discussing the Falcons? Mentioned the Falcons wanted to trade up for the 10th pick, and they assumed they wanted Dallas Turner. I guess the Jets didn't get the memo on Turner and assumed Falcons didn't either on his medical. Yeah, that's I didn't see the video, but that's something Charlie reported as well. That Dallas Turner had these medical problems, and everyone thought it was Laius Latu, but it was really Dallas Turner who had the medical red flags heading into the draft. That's it's kind of one of the reasons I think why he fell to 17. Charlie, did you see this video at all?
No, I haven't seen it, but I definitely want to check it out. I would think if the Jets were trying to, if the Falcons are trying to trade back up to 10 from the second round, that would have been for Latu.
Yeah. Yeah, I would think so too. And Slew saying, I bet Keon Coleman going in the first round, heavy sigh. I did as well. Then he went 33. It's a bad beat, I think. No, I always thought that like he was maybe 50-50 or close to going to the first round. And obviously, I think we were right with him going 33. I know there was interest in him at the end of the first round from at least one team that we kind of know of. But yeah, it's a shame that, and the Bills could have easily drafted him at 28 instead of trading you down. So yeah,
Carolina could have traded up from 33 to 31 with the 49ers potentially. You would think, typically when teams move up, they don't necessarily strike it on the first phone call. They're calling, a few teams before they find the right partner willing to move down or that kind of thing. So easily Carolina could have jumped from 33 to 31 to take Leggett, and then Buffalo probably would have taken Keon Coleman at 32. So yeah, it's bad luck on that one.
Yeah, that would have been a nice payout. Unfortunately, yeah, Slew and I can wallow in misery together. So, all right, let's get to these grades. We'll go 4 at a time, and then I'll say what I have to say about them, and then Charlie can go ahead. Caleb Williams, obviously, we knew about this pick for a long time. It's an easy A grade. Like their owner could have done something stupid like David Tepper and be like, no, I want JJ McCarthy. It's kind of like what Tepper did last year, but they got the right guy. I just don't know what to give besides an A. Jaden Daniels, I also gave an A. I think he was the best prospect remaining. Now, I mean, maybe Charlie thinks otherwise, but I think that Jaden Daniels has a higher floor than Drake May, and both of them have high ceilings. I think maybe May has a higher ceiling, but I think Daniels definitely has a higher floor. So I like him to Washington. You have Drake May going to the Patriots. Patriots could have traded out. There was media reports saying that they would. They didn't. There were media reports saying they could take JJ McCarthy possibly, and they didn't. I think they got the right guy. Like I said, I'm not as high in May. Maybe Charlie disagrees, but I gave that an A-. And then Marvin Harrison Jr., B+. Kenny was angry at me that I said a B+ is a bad grade. Or no, B+ is a good grade because I lived on B+ at college, just like working on my website rather than schoolwork. But I think I say that panned out. But no, I think a B+ is a good grade. I just think Arizona would have been better served trading down. I know they had a lot of picks, but Arizona is not one player away from competing for the playoffs. Like, they have a ton of holes in the roster. Their roster's a mess. They have Kyler Murray, who's probably going to be replaced in a year or two anyway. So I thought that getting more resources, especially for 2025, I thought would have been really good, because Arizona is going to be, I think, potentially in a position to draft a quarterback next year. So I think that would have given them more ammo to either move up for a quarterback or to take a quarterback there and then take someone else. But again, B+ not that bad, Kenny, if you're listening. So Charlie, what do you think about the first 4 picks?
Yeah, I don't have any issue with the top 2 quarterbacks. I think in this day and age, with how teams are prioritizing the running quarterbacks, I can see why those teams went that direction. I personally like Drake May more than the consensus. He was my favorite one. I think he's a safe pick to be just a good, solid starter at least, kind of like a more athletic Jared Goff. But really, I think in those top 3, you can't argue with any order that those 3 teams might take them off the board. With Arizona, so, there was all the talk of them moving down, and we had heard it. And then the day of the draft, I heard some stuff. Well, they were asking for too much, and that was scaring teams off. And so, you hear all kinds of stuff, especially in the final couple of days and week. And, I try and be responsible with what we're going to post and not just put out, crazy rumors or whatever. So I didn't really know whether to buy into that. But then, kind of as the hours went by, it kind of felt like it was ringing true a bit more and more. And then obviously they stick and pick at 4. And I agree with Walt. I think that was a mistake. And I think even if they did a trade down with Minnesota and they let Minnesota keep that pick that was 23 overall, but they got Minnesota's first round pick next year, I think that would have been worth it if I'm Arizona, because while Marvin Harrison's a really good wide receiver prospect and some of the other guys were good receiver prospects, I completely agree with Walt. They're not a player away, and you never know how high that first round pick could be. When the Lions did the Matthew Stafford trade, they could figure that first one, that first round pick was going to be late, and it was 32. But who would have thought that would have ended up being the 6th overall pick and then draft after that? The Texans, when they traded up for Deshaun Watson, no one would have thought that they would have been picking 4th overall in the draft the year after that. So, you just don't know how high that pick could be if you're Arizona. It might end up being really high, given the quarterback situation with a rookie quarterback and Sam Darnold. You just don't know. So if I were them, I really would have been really aggressive to try and just get that next year's one and let Minnesota keep these ones for this year.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if Minnesota's pick next year is outside of the top 12. Now, maybe Mathiasen, our resident Vikings fan, will disagree, but with their quarterback situation, you're right. I mean, it is a pretty rough spot. They do have some great things on the roster. Obviously, the receiving core and whatnot. The offensive line's good, but they definitely have some holes that they couldn't fill. And so yeah, I do think they should have traded down. Degeneron with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Degeneron. He says, "Nice job, gents. Another draft well done. Latu, first defensive player at 15 was wild." Yeah, we're like holding our breath for that one. When Atlanta kind of screwed everything up, we'll get to them in a second, but yeah, that was incredible. Obviously, we've never seen anything like that. Were you sweating that out too, Charlie?
I was, yeah, and Walt and I had a phone call about 6 p.m. The day of the draft, kind of discussing some of these possibilities, and but yeah, I was concerned about that, but yeah, I mean, I think that this just shows what a unique draft it is, and every draft is, its own entity, in my opinion, and this one really stands out when you have the first 14 players go on offense and you have six quarterbacks in the top 12. This is going to be one of the more memorable drafts, I think, in NFL history, especially, if these quarterbacks all, a bunch of them turn into nice players, it'll be legendary in that regard, and maybe offensive line as well, but in receivers. But if it's like 2021, where most of them are on a different team 3 years later, it's still going to be legendary for overdrafting and reaching on quarterbacks. So this one's going to be fascinating to see how it unfolds in years to come.
Yeah, I look forward to doing a redraft and regrades on this in a year and then 5 years, especially 5 years. I want to see how it turns out. It's going to be one I'm looking forward to. Matthias is saying Bears F grade. He wears nail polish. Kenny would agree. Washington A plus, 31 other teams past the Daniels, and they will regret it. New England F minus, going to ruin May with no infrastructure. Arizona A plus, future Hall of Famer. Yeah, I mean, I see if you hate Drake May, sure, and then you might be right about the infrastructure. It's kind of rough there. They don't really have receivers. The offensive line's weak, so I think if Drake May fails, I don't think it'll necessarily be on him. I think it'll be on the whole Patriots roster, which is kind of at least the offense is in shambles. Defense looks really good. Offense, although maybe Bill Belichick was holding out the defense too. So I don't know. I wouldn't be like quick to say that the defense is going to be great, but the defense at least has promise, but the offense does not look good at all. Matthias is also saying 2025 will be our year. He means the Vikings this year. Just want to see some development. I think if JJ McCarthy is good, then you might be right. But we'll see. That is a big if. So we'll discuss that in a bit. Mooj X Hooligans says Walt and Charlie are wizards. Charlie's the wizard. I'm like the sorcerer's apprentice here. But Charlie's the wizard. Matthias is saying just want to see the Vikings go for Kirby Joseph to Jared Goff and ruin the Lions' year. And so saying just to make sure Latu can wear the Guardian helmet.
Now, I will say about Kirby Joseph, I blame the NFL league office for those hits more than the player, because the players are told not to go high. Because if he goes high and he hits Hawkinson in the helmet, then there's a 15-yard penalty and a fine and a suspension and all that stuff. So because of that, players are taught to go low, and the players don't like it. The receivers say they'd rather get hit high than get hit in the knee. But the league office is so paranoid with concussions and lawyers and getting sued and the future of football with all that stuff, that they've, pushed the players to go low, and that's an unfortunate part of that emphasis, in my opinion. So I don't blame the DBs as much as I blame the league office on that.
That's definitely fair. It's like where can you hit the player? It's a pretty tough spot for defenders.
Exactly.
I agree. Mooj asking Charlie, do you like what the Bucs did with McMillan? Saw some post draft saying he might be hit better than Polk.
Yeah, I think it varied from team to team as to which receiver they liked more. So I think in that regard, McMillan was a really nice value for the Bucs late in the third with the pick they got for Carlton Davis, and I think he could step in and compete with Trey Palmer right away for reps to be the third receiver, assuming McMillan can pick up the playbook, well enough. Always a question with any rookie. But yeah, I like that pick, and I think in a year or two he could be the replacement for Chris Godwin and be a starter for the Bucs.
Yeah, I remember grading that favorably, so I was a fan of that as well. Okay, so we go 5 through 8 now. Let's get 6 out of the way first, because Malik Neighbors, it's a great pick. I mean, he could have gone 4. There was some talk, at least a few weeks before the draft, that the Cardinals viewed Neighbors favorably to Harrison Jr., and Charlie posted a hot press on the site saying that that some teams had Neighbors over Harrison as well. So, not like a great value from 4 to 6, but still, the Giants finally get a number one receiver. Daniel Jones has never had a number one receiver. Odell Beckham was traded before Daniel Jones was drafted. So, like, the best receiver he's had to work with is what, I guess, Kadarius Toney. Yeah, right. Darius Slayton, Kadarius Toney, and those 4 games when he was great, and then he got hurt. And then I don't know who else, Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James, like Daniel Jones has been pretty poor for the most part, except for 2022, but he really hasn't had a chance here. So he finally has a number one receiver. So he'll get a fair shake finally. And then we get to the other picks. So 5 and 7, I thought were very identical. So the Chargers, they draft a right tackle. They draft the tackle number 5 to play right tackle, even though he's never played right tackle before. And then the Titans, they draft J.C. Latham at 7 to play left tackle, even though he's a right tackle who doesn't play left tackle. So it feels like they should have swapped these picks. I don't know. I feel like I like Joe Alt. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. I think J.C. Latham was a little too early there at 7 personally, but Joe Alt, is he going to be able to play right tackle as well as he could left tackle? Like, maybe, but maybe not. They just don't know. And you're adding risk to this at number 5 overall. So I just worry about this pick. Now, it could work out great. He could be amazing. I have less confidence in Latham. That's why I gave C+ to the Chargers and C to the Titans. But man, I think if you spend the number 5 pick overall on a player, you should at least know he can play the position, and the Chargers don't know that for sure. So, so I'm not wild about these picks. I don't hate them, but I'm not crazy about them. But I do hate what Atlanta did. They took Michael Penix Jr. at number 8. Arthur Blank was saying he needs a succession plan to a quarterback who was yet to take a snap for him. This is so weird. Kirk Cousins just got there. It'd be different if Kirk Cousins had been there 3 or 4 years. It's okay, Cousins is getting older. He needs a succession plan, but it seems like Atlanta just kind of sabotaged the season when they were going all in already. They paid Cousins 9 figures. They paid Darnell Mooney a ton of money. They dedicate a lot of money in the prior year to free agency. So it seems like they built up this roster to win now. And this number 8 pick, we assume Latu, would have maybe pushed them over the top, giving them the edge rusher they need. When they get to the playoffs, they're going to play Jalen Hurts, Jared Goff, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Matthew Stafford. They're not going to be able to pressure these quarterbacks as well, and they're going to lose because of it. And they're going to lose because they have something for the future. But they paid all this money to win now, and just doesn't make sense. That's why I gave this a Millen grade. But maybe I don't know, Charlie. Maybe you like this more than I do. So what are your thoughts on this and the other picks here?
Yeah, I definitely see your point on the Chargers and Titans. I don't hate the picks, but I'm not over the moon about them. I think Neighbors, excellent pick there for the Giants. And the Falcons pick, I don't feel I'm not as against it, I guess. Just in part because I've never been as big a believer in Kirk Cousins. And I think, he turns 36 before the start of the season. He's coming off an Achilles. He's never taken teams deep into the postseason. He's been on teams that have had really good talent, whether it was some of the Mike Zimmer defenses, or Dalvin Cook in his prime, and Diggs, and the other receivers, Thielen in his prime. And so I feel like Kirk Cousins is kind of he's a above average quarterback. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he's trash, but I just don't think he's an elite quarterback. And so I think from Atlanta's standpoint, when they're thinking of, well, even if things don't go great with Kirk, we're probably going to be picking, mid first round. If things go well, we'll make the playoffs and win the division. And then which case we'll be picking in the, back 20s or whatever. And they're not going to get a quarterback there. So I think for them, after the years they've just spent in quarterback purgatory with since the decline of Matt Ryan, they wanted to just eradicate that. So I think their plan was, we signed Cousins because they tried to trade up, wanted to trade up early in the process, couldn't do it. And then, I think as they went through the process and doing their due diligence on Penix, they just fell in love with him. And they like the idea of having him to sit. And so a lot of great quarterbacks have sat for a year or two, and it's really helped them to develop at the pro level. And I could see where that could work out with Penix's case. And Kirk Cousins' contract really is like a 2-year deal with an option for 2 more. So I think in that regard, they're thinking of the long term of the franchise. We won't be in position to get a quarterback. We're going to be picking too low. We've been picking in the top 10 all these years with Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. There was never a quarterback that we liked worthy enough to take at those picks, and they were right to do it. They were right to pass on those guys in 2021 for Kyle Pitts. And then same thing in 2022 with like Kenny Pickett. And so I definitely think that I can see where Atlanta's going with it. But yeah, I mean, there's no doubt it hurts the problem of the pass rush right now. But I think if Penix pans out 10 years from now, and he's a good quarterback, and they're a team that is definitely in the mix of the NFC, then I think it could end up being a good pick, and could end up being similar to Rodgers with the Packers sitting behind Favre. So it's hard to say, too early to say for sure. But I think you can make an argument that it was a smart long-term, kind of thought out process. And then you can also say it was a mistake. They should have gone for the pass rusher, and you can make a good argument either way.
Cassandra's saying, doesn't Penix turn 36 before the start of the season? 35, not 36. You're off. John asking, why pay Cousins then if they had this plan?
Well, I mean, I don't think they had the plan to take Penix when they paid Cousins. I think what happened was they looked into trading up into the top of the first round. Washington was approached at the combine and said no. And so then at that point, I think they felt, well, we're better off signing a veteran. And then they're doing their due diligence on these quarterbacks that aren't going to go at the top of the draft, like Penix, Nix, JJ McCarthy, the other guys like Rattler, Pratt, whoever. And then I think in the course of that process, they just fell in love with Penix and felt like, this is about the long-term future of our franchise, not just right now, but we need a long-term quarterback. Kirk's 36. He's not a long-term player at this point of his career. He is, basically on a year-to-year basis or 2-year basis. So we could be right back where we have been in a year or two. So I think that's just kind of the view that they had.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, the Packers are kind of lauded now for what they did with No Cookie Jordan Love, but I thought they blew an opportunity to win a Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers in 2020. If had Aaron Rodgers had Brandon Ayuk or T Higgins, which interesting enough, like the Jets are maybe trying to trade for one of these two right now to get to Rodgers. Had he had one of them, in addition to Devontae Adams in 2020, I think they would have won the Super Bowl. I mean, they almost beat Tampa in the NFC Championship, and then we saw what Tampa did to Kansas City in the next game. So I think that, like, while that decision will look good now, and people are praising them for it, I think that people forget that they blew a chance early. And you could be right. I mean, Kirk Cousins doesn't have a great playoff history, but I was pretty encouraged with what we saw from him last year. He was having his best year ever. And so I thought maybe that could carry over, although he is coming off the torn Achilles, so you just never know. It could hurt him this upcoming year. So I get it for the long term. I mean, this probably is good, but I don't know. It just feels like they're sabotaging their season. And I don't know, if I'm a player on that team and I thought we had a chance to win the Super Bowl, I'm pretty pissed. And actually, I posted this on the site, or I posted on Twitter. I got a text from someone who knows Kirk Cousins. And they said that Kirk Cousins was pretty pissed But he was not going to make us think about it because he's a good guy. But he was really, really angry about it. So I don't blame him, you know. All right. So a couple of questions here. John asking, why so early tonight? My kids just barely went to bed. It's not this is not permanent. We're not going to start early. Just I actually don't know what Charlie's schedule is like. I don't know if he could have started 10:30, but I don't want Charlie to go to bed too late or anything like that. He's not crazy like me, who goes like I go to sleep 6 a.m. So
yeah, I'm getting up at 6 a.m. to
right.
take my little one to school. So
exactly, yeah, I don't want Charlie too fatigued driving his kid to school. Atlanta's coach and GM playing the long games versus job security. Yeah, it wasn't. We don't know for sure, maybe, but wasn't this? I thought this was Arthur Blank's decision, wasn't it?
I think they all came on board on it. Honestly, I think the Terry Fontenot, the GM, and Raheem Morris, the head coach, I think they all gravitated towards Penix, and I think Blank liked the idea of kind of finding the future guy as well.
Okay, just from what Ian Rappaport said, it sounded like Blank. It was his idea, but I guess we don't know for sure. I just assumed. Matthias is saying Chargers B. Think the Chargers will be fine. Giants A. Quality pick for a dumpster team. Titans B. Falcons F. No need to explain. And then John's saying, I think he's a bit younger than Jordan Love, which is crazy. Plus, he has an injury history. Crazy move. Yeah, the injury concerns are there. He's 24. Had he been 21 and injury-free, I would have liked this more for sure. Still, though, I think you're still sabotaging your future. But then again, if Penix were 21 and had no injury history, I think he would have been – where do you think he would have gone? I don't have to – I could just ask you. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he would have been in that discussion to go top 3, top 5. You know, he was rising, and but I mean, at the same time, he also, you know, a lot of teams like players that have some maturity and have a lot of experience. The old Bill Parcells rationale of quarterback evaluation, wanting guys with multiple years of starting a class. So, you know, Penix definitely had that going for him, having elevated 2 programs at Indiana and Washington. So, you know, I think he's a very complex evaluation given the injury history and age and the offense he ran in college, but the inconsistency with accuracy, the great games, and the feast and the famine. So yeah, it's definitely complicated. It's not a cut and dry, in my opinion. I know a lot everyone's bashing it, but in my opinion, I think it's a complicated decision and complicated evaluation on whether it was the right move or not.
Yeah, Slew's saying it's just the spell of the alien Arthur Smith mustache. I don't know if Charlie knows this, but that was one of my theories that Arthur Smith was he's being mind controlled by an intergalactic alien mustache that attached itself to his face, and that's why Bijan Robinson wasn't getting the carries last year. Instead, it was like Cordell Patterson. That was my working theory. Kenny didn't like it, but I think I was close to convincing him that I was correct. John saying, don't you think Penix is pissed? I have to sit 2 years while every other quarterback drafted in the first round gets to play right away. Well, I mean, he was drafted 8th overall, so you know there's that. You know, so yeah, while he might be a little agitated that he'd have to sit, like at least he gets more money. You know, that's it gets better, I suppose.
Yeah, and you know, something we saw with Pat Mahomes recently, you know, it really benefited him to sit coming from a college offense, which you know, RPO with some stands for run pass offense, but for NFL it can also stand for ridiculous protection offense. So you know, there's a big difference from the defenses in the Pac-12 to the NFL, and I think Aaron Rodgers really benefited from as a player watching Favre those years, and I think Jordan Love really benefited watching Rodgers, and Mahomes benefited watching Alex Smith. So I could see where Penix will be a better player when he plays because of the experience of watching Kirk Cousins.
Mm-hmm. Well, I figured we'd spend a lot on the number 8 picks, so we can move on. The Bears getting Roma Dunze at number 9. I gave this a B+. They have so many weapons in Chicago. I started working on my fantasy rankings. I had to move Odunze down. I kind of speculated where he would go before the draft, but that receiving room is so crowded with DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet. Odunze might get lost in the shuffle at least like his rookie year, and I think eventually he's going to be a stud for them. But it's disappointing fantasy wise for Odunze, but I like the pick. I gave it a B plus. JJ McCarthy, not crazy about him. I feel like he's kind of like Mac Jones, low ceiling. It maybe is a higher floor, but that's kind of like what Mac Jones was. So I don't love this. Number 11, Olu Fashanu. My problem here is that like Fashanu may not play this year. Now like he's a good insurance policy for Tyron Smith, but if Tyron Smith stays healthy and Morgan Moses stays healthy, like he's not going to see the field, whereas like Brock Bowers would. Like no matter what, like Bowers would have been on the field on day one, and he would have played most snaps. And so I just feel like the Jets should have gone with Bowers. I thought like trading down one pick and then getting Bowers, I thought was going to be phenomenal, but they went in this direction. So I was surprised by the pick and just didn't like it very much. I gave it a C. And then Bo Nix, I think it's an F. I think he's the next Christian Ponder or Blaine Gabbert, kind of like a quarterback pushed up who should be going round 2. Just based on his talent, but he goes round 1 because the team is desperate for a quarterback. I think Denver should at least trade it down and gotten him. I think taking him at 12, I think is kind of a disaster. So I gave that an F. So what do you think about these 4 picks?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think Odunze is a solid pick for the Bears. I mean, me personally, I would have taken Latu over him just because I think that's a bigger issue on the team. And typically you can find receivers in the draft in the early rounds. Most years it can be hard to get a really good edge rusher, and you had him fall to you at 9. But Odunze is going to be fine. He'll be a good player. McCarthy, I agree with you on that one, Walt. I just felt more of a game manager vibe from him. And honestly, one of the last games I rewatched tape-wise, I think it's a blur now, but I think it was Tuesday before the draft. I rewatched Michigan versus Bowling Green, and McCarthy was abysmal. I mean, he threw 3 picks in that game. He easily could have thrown 2 or 3 more, had a fumble. He kept Bowling Green in that game. So granted, it's one game and players will have a bad game here and there. It doesn't mean they're bad players, but I think that this was a overhype situation, and I kind of wondered about practice interceptions. He made a comment about that and talking about what he tries to block out of his mind in pregame meditation, which kind of set up an alarm bell for me as well with why he threw so little in the fourth quarter of games, even close games. And so I don't know. I felt like something's kind of fishy there. Similarly, I think Bo Nix, I agree, was really, in my opinion, more of a second round talent, but Denver's just desperate. And I 100% agree on Fashanu to the Jets. If everything goes well for the Jets, Fashanu doesn't play this season. So I don't like that in terms of helping Rodgers with another weapon. And I think receiving wise, well, they still have time to add more. I think Malachi Corley was a nice solid pick for them on day 2, but he's not going to bring the mismatch element that Bowers would in the middle of the field. I think that would have been a great pick for the Jets. So I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, it was very, very confusing that they went that route. Stanley, he's asking about McCarthy, but we answered that. Matthias is saying Bears F, a worse version of Darnell Mooney. Vikings A plus, Michigan QB going to take the Vikings to 6. QB Jets B, build the offensive line. Denver F, it's Bo Nix, draft whoever is the passing down back. Yeah, basically. All right, so let's move on here. The Raiders at 13, Brock Bowers falls to them and they take him. I love this because they could have easily gone. They could easily said, "Hey, we drafted Michael Mayer last year." Now, granted, it's different front office, but they could have had Mayer block this pick, and then Bowers would have fallen, I guess, to the Colts. And so I think that would have been a mistake, but they got a great weapon. And Devontae Adams is not going to be there much longer, so they need another threat there. Talise Fuaga to the Saints. The Saints are desperate for a tackle. I didn't realize how bad Ryan Ramczak's injury was. Like, I knew Petting was a terrible left tackle, but Ramczyk may never play again, which is insane. So they were desperate for left tackle and right tackle. So Fuaga makes sense as the right tackle there. Laiatu Latu, he could have gone 8 easily. Now he goes 15, first defensive player off the board. And similarly, Seattle taking the second best defensive player on the board. Byron Murphy could have gone 9. So I think those two teams got A pluses, outstanding value. What are your thoughts on these 4 picks?
Yeah, I thought that Bowers, I mean, for the Raiders to follow their board, taking the right, I think that's the best player available. So I don't think you can really criticize him too much. I personally would have been a bit more inclined towards the offensive line, but but I think, I mean, Bowers is such a unique and different player. It's hard to pass on unique. When you can get a rare guy, you want to grab them because they are hard to find and they can be special elements to your team. So I don't disagree. The Saints and Fuaga, I definitely felt the tackle need was huge, and we have been mocking that for a while. The only thing is I kind of liked some of the other ones more as a fit for them, like Fatanu or Mims, because I think they have left tackle potential, where I think Fuaga is kind of he's right tackle only or guard. So I think it might have made more sense to take someone like Fatanu, who could play left tackle or guard or right tackle, but it's kind of splitting hairs. Love the Latu pick for the Colts. I think that's a steal at 15. Dynamite edge rusher. I think he's going to be a really good player for Indianapolis. I think Byron Murphy will be a really solid player for Seattle. It felt a little rich with all the money they gave to Draymond Jones and Leonard Williams to take another kind of interior guy. But, looking at best player available, I can't ding him too much. And the way the league goes, before too long, Draymond Jones might be gone in a year or two, and then you have a disruptive presence like Murphy that's going to be there for 10 years or more. So I can't criticize it too much.
Mm-hmm. John asking, do you think the Raiders thought Penix would fall to them? Charlie, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's why Denver didn't trade down, was because when I think that when Penix went off the board, that kind of set things in a other domino effect where, for Denver, I think if Penix was there and Bo Nix was there, maybe they feel like, okay, we can move down. The Raiders will take Penix and we can get Nix later. But now I think with Penix off the board and 5 are gone, I think their concern is, well, if we move down, what if the Raiders take them, or what if the Seahawks take them, and then we don't get our guy. So I think that's why Denver did not move down in the first round. But I think the Raiders easily could have taken Penix if he got to their pick.
Yeah, I thought that was going to happen. Corey saying, hey guys, you had another great year. You two are 2 of the best mock drafters in the world. Your website's #1 IMO. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much, Corey. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Matthias is saying Raiders A+. Saints F should have traded out in the first round and tanked this year. I agree with that. I've been saying that for a long time, that the Saints should just try to go a 1-16 and try to get the top quarterback of the next year's class. It just seems like they're going to go 8-9 or 9-8 every single year. And to that, John says Dennis Allen fired after the second preseason game. It would be funny to see a coach fired after the second preseason game or any preseason game. Typically don't see that, but if they're that embarrassing in the preseason, I think that'd be funny. Robert says, I can't wait for the Joe Milton why the slide. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be, I guess that's another one that we can have on the site. So yeah, looking forward to that as well. And Corey asking thoughts on the Bills Keon Coleman pick. Do you guys think he will be a big contributor to the Bills offense? I like Keon Coleman. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but we knew that a team had interested in him at the end of the first round. Yeah, I think I think he's going to be a good threat for Josh Allen in the end zone, and the Bills had struggled in the red zone for for a stretch, and so I think that I think it's a good fit, and I thought it's good value. What do you think?
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's a good pick for Buffalo. And I think Keon Coleman slid because of the slower 40 time. But if look through past years, there were many good NFL receivers that had slow 40 times. And the 40 time doesn't always illustrate play speed. And, guys like Anquan Bolden, Amon-Ra St. Brown had a similar 40 time to Keon Coleman. And he just became one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. So, yeah, I definitely think that kind of thing can get overblown, and I think Keon Coleman's going to be a good player for Buffalo.
Yeah, if you think a slow 40 time means a guy's going to bust, Jerry Rice ran a 4.71. So I think
Right.
yeah, I think it's a little overblown sometimes. Yeah, yeah. Jerry Rice had a 6.41. No, that would be a little bad. I think if someone ran a 6.41 like Rich Eisen speed, that'd be pretty awful. And Robert says, I don't think tanking is as effective in the NFL as much as it is in the NBA. I would think it'd be more effective because if you have the worst record in the NBA, you're not guaranteed the top pick because of the lottery. Whereas in the NFL, you would automatically get the top pick. So maybe teams don't do it as often as they should, really. Like teams tank in the NBA all the time. It's so blatant. You don't see that as often in the NFL, but I think I think you probably should if these teams are smarter. You just don't.
Yeah, there's just too many people who are worried about getting fired.
Yeah.
The coaches and scouts and everyone, and so yeah, I think owners, agree with you, Walt, but I think that the people working the teams are there's just so much firing and so much turnover in NFL, and so many coaches can be, one and done, or like Frank Reich or Urban Meyer in recent years don't even make it through the first season. So the owners kind of, with the way they change coaches out and staffs out, have kind of set that trap for themselves.
Yeah, if I'm Gail Benson, the owner of the Saints, I don't know how much she cares, but if I were her, I'd go to every coach and every player and be like, "You're not going to lose your job. I just want the number one pick." I think an owner should do that, but well, didn't the Dolphins owner Stephen Ross get in trouble for that or something?
Supposedly, yeah, that's what Brian Flores alleged. And
Yeah,
the only time I really felt like a team may have tanked was in end of 2014 with Lovie Smith and the Bucks in the final game of the year. I think they were up by like 17 points at halftime in a meaningless game, and they were going to have the number one pick with Jameis Winston coming out. And then in the second half, Lovey benched like all of their starters and good players, and I think it was Atlanta, I want to say, but whoever it was came back and won the game, and the Bucks held on to the number one pick. That was the only time I ever felt like, man, I think they just threw that game. So uh,
that's that's funny. I mean, Lovie Smith came back to haunt the Texans with that, so it's kind of funny because full circle. Matthieson giving the Vikings an A+ for this next pick. So let's get right to it. Vikings taking Dallas Turner at 17. They traded up from 23. I didn't like this. I don't like their management of resources. Well, first of all, I didn't like that because right now, going into 2025, the draft, they have 3 picks. They have a first rounder and 2 fifths, and that's it. I feel like they need a little bit more. This team does not. I don't think they were a Dallas Turner away from going to the playoffs. I think they're the weakest team in that division, with or without Turner. So I didn't like the move. And plus, Dallas Turner was falling because of the medical. And it seems like Minnesota, I guess, didn't get the memo, or every team has their own doctor. So I guess they cleared him. But that's why he was falling, or at least one of the reasons. So, yeah, it feels like they could have not given up as much for Turner. Maybe if he falls a couple more spots, but we'll see. I mean, Cincinnati was not going to take him, by the way. And Cincinnati at 18, they got Amarius Mims. He was actually their second choice at tackle. So I like the value for them here. They wanted J.C. Latham first and foremost, but Latham was Cincinnati always feels like they always want a guy who's like obviously going to go in the top 10. They're like, oh, maybe we'll get him at 18 or 24 or whatever they're drafting. And like that never happens. But their second choice was Mims. And I like his upside. So, and you have to protect Joe Burrow. So Fine with it. Jared Verse, B minus. Feels like those. It's a little too early. I feel like they could have traded down and taken him like 5 spots later. But yeah, I'm not crazy about it, but I don't hate it either. I get a B minus. And then Troy Fautanu gave this a B minus just because of his medical question marks. I like him as a player. I just worry about him being able to stay healthy. So that is my one concern. It's a B minus again. Kenny, calm down. Not too bad of a grade here. So Charlie, what are your thoughts on these 4 picks?
Yeah, I have some consternation as to whether Minnesota could have stayed at 23 and had one of those next few pass rushers to come off the board get to them between Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, and Chop Robinson. I mean, I do think Dallas Turner is a much better player than Chop Robinson. So, in that regard, I can see where, maybe they just loved him and felt he was a great scheme fit. But I agree with Walt that giving up the future resources when they already did that to get back, with the trade with the Texans, that it's, they're very low on draft capital, which I don't think is good considering they still have a lot to build on that roster defensively. Um, I like the Mims pick. I was a huge Mims fan throughout the process. I think that's a great landing spot for him with Cincinnati. You could start him out at right guard, which would be a good starting point for him given the lack of starting experience in college. But the skill set is off the charts, and I think long term, Trent Brown is just a 1 year potential solution at this point of his career, and who knows if he can even stay healthy this season. So Mims gives them the security there, and as Walt said, they got to keep Burrow healthy to have any shot at anything. Um, Verse, yeah, I agree. I think he, maybe a little high, but I think the Rams definitely needed help on the front seven, so I don't fault them too much on that. I like Fatanu as a player. I think that's a nice pick for Pittsburgh. Gives them a versatile blocker who could start at guard or tackle for them.
Stone Papa Smurf asking, would you bet on Michael Williams going number 1 overall next year? I would think it would be Shador Sanders or Carson Beck, or who knows, maybe a quarterback comes out of nowhere. Kind of like, remember Joe Burrow, just no one was talking about him number 1 overall, then he went number 1. I would think it's a quarterback. In fact, in my mock draft for 2025, I had 3 quarterbacks going 1, 2, 3. So no, but he could be the first non-quarterback off the board, but not number 1 overall though.
Yeah, I agree. I think most likely you'll have a quarterback there through trade or through just whoever lands that pick.
Robert saying, since a lot of times the best QB in the draft isn't always the number 1 pick, a lot of times they went late first round in a great situation. So he's talking about tanking, and he says NBA can get a star player like Giannis. I mean, that's definitely true. I mean, NBA is more focused on the single player. But in the NFL, you need a quarterback. And look at Atlanta. Like, they took a quarterback number 8 who's not going to play for the next 2 years just to have a quarterback. Now imagine if you can get the best quarterback, you're set for like the next dozen years at least. So I just think I think teams need to tank more. They just don't. John asking, biggest steal in the second round. He says, I've got Cooper DeJean. I think it's either DeJean, Kool-Aid McKinstry to the Saints, or Jackson Powers Johnson to the Raiders. Does anyone else come to mind, Charlie?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely. I love Powers Johnson. I think that was a big steal at pick 44. There were others. I think Chris Jenkins at pick 49 to the Bengals was a steal. I mean, there was a lot of really good ones. Obviously, DeJean and McKinstry, but I think Johnny Newton was a nice value for Washington at 36. I think later A.D. Mitchell to the Colts at 52. Rakestraw to the Lions at 61. Those were all really good picks, steals for where they got them. Even Braswell to Tampa Bay at 57 was another really nice one for where they got him. So, yeah, the second round, there were some sneaky good picks kind of sprinkled throughout.
Yeah, it was an impressive second round for sure. John saying Franklin in the fourth round was the steal for the Broncos. I agree with that as well. Like he could have gone second round and he went fourth.
Mm-hmm.
Corey asking, do you guys think the Bills did enough this offseason to fill all the voids they had with the losses of Diggs, Davis, Morse, Floyd, White, Hyde, and Porter? Do you think they're still a top contender? So I'm gonna do season previews and stuff starting in June, but I think the Bills have gotten weaker this offseason for sure, but I still think they're a contender though. As long as they have Josh Allen and they have a good, I think they have a good defense. Like Matt Milano is going to come back from injury. Like that's huge. Like when they lost Milano last year, they just took a big hit. So getting him back, I think is pretty enormous. They did plug some holes for sure. And a lot we just don't know about. Like, is Keon Coleman going to be good this year? Like, we don't know that yet. Like, if he is, then that's going to look a lot better with Diggs gone. You have Dalton Kincaid who's going to have more experience. You think he's going to have a great second year. We'll see what the offensive line looks like, but like if the Bills won the Super Bowl this year, it wouldn't surprise me at all. I just think they're a little bit weaker, but then again, like they almost beat the Super Bowl champion in the second round this past year, and they get Milano back. So, I don't know. Long story short, I think they are still a contender. What do you think, Charlie?
Yeah, I still think they're a top contender, and I think they have some young players on the team that are going to get better, and they probably have been developing and that they feel are ready to go and replace some of these veterans. I know that a lot of the media was, hooting and hollering and so raving about the Texans getting Diggs, but last year, I felt like Diggs was starting to decline, watching some of the games. I thought that he didn't quite look the same player, not as dynamic. And obviously he's been at it a while, has got some wear and tear, has had injuries. So I definitely think, you know, they may have sold at the right time. Might be some short-term pain, but ends up being some long-term gain where maybe they really miss them early in the season, but then come later in the year, Coleman kind of gets his feet under him as a rookie, and then they really start clicking.
Yeah, the Diggs thing was weird. As soon as the new coordinator came in, Joe Brady, like his production declined. So I just wonder if he just wasn't a good fit for the offense because he had a great start to the season, and
Mhm.
just, he didn't do anything at the end. So I think that is it either that or he was nursing some injury that we just didn't know about, which tends to happen sometimes. But he is past 30, so the decline is coming. So I do think it was smart to sell high at the moment. So yeah. Matthias saying something about a projected third round comp pick for the Vikings. I don't know about comp picks, but if so, that does make sense then.
I'm not sure. I mean, they signed John Grenard. Didn't they? They signed a few. Gosh, I'm blanking. Who they signed some other help defensively, didn't they?
um they I know they signed Andrew Van Ginkel.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of.
Okay.
Yeah, Van Ginkel, Grenard got big money. Um, I think Blake Cashman, right,
Yep,
signed
Blake
him.
Cashman. Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if they'd get a third comp pick. It might be a little bit later, but who did they lose that? Well, Kirk Cousins. So yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they signed a few guys, so I'm not sure it'll be a three, maybe a four, but who knows? That's tough to say. Could be. It's possible.
They also signed the great Jerry Tillery. Crooked Tillery is not going to do well for them, I think. Is Gabe Davis a loss? That's a good question. Robert asking, I got here late. Maybe you mentioned it, but were there any big reaches in this draft? I don't think we've gotten to any of the reaches yet, right? Unless I'm forgetting something. Um,
I wouldn't
what
say there really was a huge reach. Like there wasn't like a Cole Strange this year or a Christian Ponder, EJ Manuel, well, maybe Bo Nix, but I
bonus?
mean
Yeah,
Bo Nix, but Bo Nix was, I think other teams would have viewed him as a second rounder, and which case, whereas Ponder was graded in the fourth round by some teams, and EJ Manuel in the third round. So at the quarterback position, kind of you have to take with a grain of salt. But otherwise, I don't think there was like a Cole Strange kind of pick in this year's draft. I think for the most, but there were some maybe little reaches, like say Ricky Pearsall at 31. But if he didn't go there, he would have gone in the top half of the second round. He would have been gone by the middle of the second round, most likely. So not a huge reach when you're talking about pick 31 versus, say a pick in the early 40s, 10 spots later.
That's my theory about why there weren't that many trades in this draft when everyone thought there were going to be so many, is because like there weren't that many reaches. And so like the good players came off the board. And so no one really fell until we got to the late teens and the 20s. And that's when he started seeing the trades. For example, like we just talked about Dallas Turner. Like he was the Vikings considered him someone who fell, but like early on, no one really fell. So no one was willing to trade up. I think so. That's my working theory. I'm not sure. And then Sue bringing up Aurora Rowe at 35. I think that was a reach for sure. But yeah, but as far as first round, I don't think so. But we still have 12 picks to discuss. Corey asking how good of a player do you guys think Cole Bishop can be? I think he's like super athletic. I think he has a high upside. But Charlie, maybe you can talk more about him.
Yeah, I think he's a safe pick to be a good, strong safety. I think he definitely can be as good as Poyer has been for them. I think he has that potential, and Poyer's been a really good safety at Buffalo for a number of years. So I think he's going to need development like any player for going against pro receivers, but I think in time he could end up being a potential Pro Bowl caliber safety for them.
And Stone Papa Smurf saying people sleeping on Curtis Samuel. Yeah, I like that addition. And we know he fits in the offense. He was in Joe Brady's offense in Carolina. And Corey asking about the Falcons QB situation. We talked about that earlier. So if you want to rewind, we went at length. We talked about that at length. I was in short, I was not a fan at all. Charlie is more bullish on it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's get to 21 through 24. So the Dolphins getting Chop Robinson at 21. I gave it a B. I guess like I don't know. If I were to regrade this, I think like B minus. I think it's a little early for Chop Robinson, maybe even C plus. I get it though. They lost so many pass rushers and they need an edge rush. And they just saw a bunch of edge rushers go off the board and you're like, oh man, we need our guys. So I get it. Because they have to chase down Josh Allen twice a year, Aaron Rodgers twice a year if he plays. And now Drake May twice a year. So the division's loaded at quarterback. So I understand it. Quinion Mitchell, 22, was insane. He could have gone, I thought, as early as 15, maybe even 13 to the Raiders. I thought it was a steal at 22. Brian Thomas, I gave this an E plus. I kind of rethinking this. So at the time I was higher on it because, and it was really an A plus because they traded it down. They got some good resources. So that factored in, but I think the Jaguars should have taken Terry and Arnold here. And that's what the Lions did. I love that move. Arnold was, he really fell. So he like Mitchell, he could have gone 13 or 15. So I thought that was a steal here for the Lions, but for the Jaguars, I think they're okay at receiver. Now they cut Zay Jones for Thomas. If they kept Zay Jones, it would have had him, Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, and then Evan Ingram. That's not amazing, but I think it's good enough. And their defense was so horrible last year. They couldn't stop the pass at all. Jake Browning looked like Joe Montana in that Monday night game against them. And so I think they really needed to focus on their secondary. And so, especially with the Texans having all these great receivers, and the Ridley going to the Titans, and the Colts having Michael Pittman. I think the Colts are going to the Colts drafted a receiver in the second round. So I think the Jaguars really needed to go after Arnold. But what are your thoughts on these 4 picks?
Yeah, I agree with you on most of these. I think that Chop Robinson, slight reach at 21. Get it, they got their D lineman coming off injury, but that felt a little high to me. Also, I think I kind of would have liked Johnny Newton more there to replace Christian Wilkins. Um, but, Chop Robinson, I can see where they want a young edge rusher. But if these guys come back from injury, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips, well, and they sign Shaq Barrett, I mean, Chop's going to be the fourth guy there. And he's not like he has the size to slide inside to rush as a tackle and sub. So, uh, I wasn't as big of a fan of that pick for a team that's in win now mode like the Dolphins. I thought Quinion Mitchell, nice pick for the Eagles, makes a lot of sense. And I like the fact that they have Bradbury and Slay because Quinion Mitchell is still making a big jump in competition from the MAC. And Bradbury did it from a small school to the NFL, so I think that's a good example for him in the DB's room there with Philadelphia. So I think that pick was a good one. Um, I agree with you, Walt, on Brian Thomas Jr. I like the player, and I don't fault the Jag. I agree. I think the Jags made a nice move in moving down and then potentially getting who they wanted. But I agree that I think Terry and Arnold would have made more sense for them. And I think for the Lions, Terry and Arnold is just I don't think there's any way they could have ever expected that he would get within reach of them going into the draft. I mean, he was a surefire, top 20 guy, really, top 18, 17 safely. So to slip to 24 where they're getting great value and filling the biggest need on their team, I think was really a dream come true there for Detroit.
Yeah, I thought that was an amazing pick just to get someone like him who could really put them over the top. I thought that was awesome. John with the 199, thank you so much. Gas prices up, stock market down. Sorry, John. This is a reference to he usually donates on 9/11. This references the Sean McDermott's 9/11 speech. But yeah, 199. So yeah, hopefully things turn around. Things are looking bleak with people taking out loans to buy groceries and I don't know if you guys play the stock market or anything like that, but Starbucks, their earnings came out and they were like so dreadful. And I'm like, yeah, I guess who's going to Starbucks if you can't afford groceries? It's pretty bleak. Hopefully things turn around. We had a couple questions here. How good do you guys, Stanley asking, how good do y'all think Tyler Nubin is going to be? I like Nubin. I like all safeties or linebackers who have plus instincts. I think that kind of translates right away. And I think he can be a good starter like day one for the Giants. So I like the move. What do you think about Nubin?
Yeah, I like that move. A pick we had mocked and talked about during the day on Friday that the Giants could be targeting him that night in round two. So it made a lot of sense. I think he's a good fit for them, and I think he could play pretty quickly and turn into a real nice player for them.
I'm so disappointed that we couldn't bet on that. I did bet Nubin to be the first safety drafted, so thank you, Charlie. But in the second round, I mean, well, actually, yeah, no, overall. But yeah, you couldn't actually bet who the Giants are going to draft in the second round. So sportsbooks need to do better. Will Chubb and Phillips even play this season? I don't know their current situation. I think like one of them is unlikely to play. I think it was Phillips. I'm not sure. And Corey also asking, do you guys think the Niners will trade Ayuk or Samuel? I think they're going to trade one of them. That's why they took Pearsall. If they didn't draft Pearsall, then I don't think they would. But John Lynch said he wasn't going to trade them, but I think that was him just trying to gain leverage. Any thoughts on these two questions?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a good chance they trade one of them, just because it's going to be difficult to afford both, and they're going to have to pay Brock Purdy a big extension before long, and you have expensive years here with Nick Bosa and Hargrave and others. So I definitely think that they're going to probably look to trade one of them to save some money, and that's why Pearsall was taken at 31.
Okay, 25 through 28. We have Jordan Morgan here going to the Packers. It's a B. I think Tyler Guyton would have been a better fit for them. But I can't fault the Packers for trying to protect no cookie Jordan Love. Speaking of protecting the quarterbacks, Buccaneers took Graham Barton at 26. He can play guard, he can play center, and the Buccaneers need help at both positions. So I like the pick. I think he could have gone a little earlier, even to the Steelers. Had Fautanu not been been on the board, I think he may have been the pick there. Cardinals taking Darius Robinson. That's a pick we had in our mocks. The B plus. Arizona has lost so much talent on the defensive line in recent years. So getting him was a good pick, I thought. And then Kansas City getting Xavier Worthy. I give this a C plus. Now, obviously, it's a big need. The receiver is pretty bleak for them if Rashee Rice is suspended for a while. They're only going to have Marquise Brown, and like their GM even came out and said that Kadarius Toney is our best receiver. So yeah, they definitely need a receiver there. But my question is like, why did they trade up for him here? Obviously, Dallas could have taken him, I guess San Francisco, but I just thought there were so many good receivers in this range that you just didn't really need to press the issue and give up resources. So that's why I give the Chiefs a C plus, not because of Worthy, because of the move. So what are your thoughts on these 4 picks?
I think Morgan. I don't think he has the upside of Tyler Guyton, but maybe is a little safer. So maybe that's where Green Bay was coming from with that decision. But definitely, I think they needed to improve the offensive line. Same thing with the Bucks. The interior of their O-line was just really weak last year, really struggled to run the ball all year. So I think Barton makes sense. I personally like Powers Johnson more than Barton, but at least Barton could also potentially help them at tackle if they in an emergency situation, which Powers Johnson couldn't. So you have that going for him. And then Arizona, I think Darius Robinson, nice player, real solid, safe pick there to give them a disruptor at end and defensive tackle. And I agree with KC. It felt like the trade up was unnecessary. I mean, one Guyton may have got, or I'm sorry, Xavier Worthy might have gotten to that pick anyway. But even if he's off the board, like Walt said, so many other good receivers, Pearsall, Leggett, McConkey, and Keon Coleman all went, between 31 and 34. So you had a lot of good receivers right there. So it felt like you gave up something that you really didn't have to.
Yeah. So we have a question. Oh, we have Jerm, $5. Thank you so much. Current thoughts on GME. I'm still in GME. I still hold the position. I'm selling covered calls as I'm holding. So yeah, just holding. I like GME much more than AMC. I'm out of AMC. But GameStop, they have no debt. They have billions in cash. It just feels like they're just waiting on a great move. Or I don't know what they're going to do with all this money that they have, but I feel like once they make that announcement, people are like, "Oh crap! Like this company is for real." So, I'm still fully in GME. I have not sold any shares. I'm only selling cover calls as we wait for the next leg up, I guess. But yeah, thank you so much, Jerm. Just really appreciate it. Corey asking, will Xavier Worthy be more like Tyreek Hill or more like Darius Toney or Sky Moore or somewhere in the middle? I believe, Charlie, you compared him to Will Fuller, which I liked them a lot in your scouting report. Because Will Fuller had that great speed, but he was also injured all the time. And I think Xavier Worthy, with his slender build, could be injured all the time. And like when he plays, he has these great games, but it's like, oh, he only played 8 games this year. Oh, next year he only plays 6 games. He only played 10 games. Like, I feel like you're going to see that a lot out of Worthy. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think he's a little different than some of these guys because of just the size and really thin lower body as well. So I do think that with Will Fuller, you saw this game-breaking speed and the ability to produce a massive game-changing play at any time and a massive game. But from week to week, you could have inconsistency, and I could see that with Worthy.
Yeah. Corey asking, do you think Guyton and BB are both starting for Dallas this year? I think at least one is definitely going to start. But they had a hole at tackle and guard, or the tackle, guard, and I guess center. So they lost Biotish. So I mean, both could start. I'm not sure about BB, but I'm pretty confident Guyton's going to start. Any thoughts on this? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that if it's all going to depend on which one of them kind of adapts faster. If Guyton can play left tackle, then they can keep Tyler Smith at guard. So I don't think BB would start. But I think if Tyler Guyton needs more time to transition to left tackle in the NFL, they can kick Tyler Smith out, and then BB starts at left guard. So I think it's really going to be figured out come training camp and then early in the season.
Yeah. Stanley asking, do you think LeBron is done after the Lakers got eliminated by Denver? LeBron had a really good series. I don't think he's done. Now he's not like the same player he once was, but I think he might be done as like a number one who wins a championship. But if like at this stage of his career, like if he's a number two, then I think that he could still win it. So I still think he can play. Mooj asking, did you happen to see Nick Wright's comments on Harry Roseman? Have thoughts? I did not. I don't know. I don't watch Nick Wright at all. I think like some of what he says is like kind of ridiculous. But I don't know what he said, so maybe you can let us know. Charlie, do you have any idea about this?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, yeah, Mooj, just let us know. Corey asking, who are the top 3 GMs in the NFL today? I'd have to see a list, like off the top of my head. I don't know. I don't know what. Any thoughts on this? This is something I have to think about. I don't know if I could just answer it just like right now.
I mean, I would say some of the guys that come to mind for me would be Brett Veach, Howie Roseman,
Mhm.
Brad Holmes, Eric DaCosta. Those ones stand out to me as being and I would I would guess I would say Les Snead's kind of on the bubble there as well. I think you can make an argument for him being a really good GM, and you can make some arguments of not so much. But he also, I think, the coach holds a big sway there as well. So, but those guys stand out to me as I think being really good GMs.
Yeah, I mean, you could put John Schneider in there as well.
Mhm.
Now he's made a couple of sketchy picks in the first round from time to time, but I mean his drafting in the middle rounds is usually great. So yeah,
Yeah.
you could put him in there. So I mean there are a bunch of guys. Like I said, I'd have to really think about this. Mooch saying the Cowboys like to make flashy picks. Are you surprised that they passed on running backs? I'm pretty surprised they passed on all running backs. I thought they'd take one on day 2. I guess they just didn't like this class, and this running back class is very weak. So did that surprise you at all, Charlie?
Yeah, especially at that third round pick, when they took BB, because having taken Guyton, you would think that between Guyton and then maybe TJ Bass, they have their replacements there at left tackle and center. And then they could have gotten a ball carrier at 73. Because you had Blake Corum still on the board there. You had Marshawn Lloyd. Uh, Ray Davis, was then he went in the 4th round, but there was a lot of good running backs there that I think they that surprised me that they didn't take one when they had the shot.
Yeah, yeah, that was very shocking. And we were saying Nick Wright said how he gets the best draft grades by the media because his picks align with mock drafts. I mean, except for like Jalen Rager, and I guess Andre Dillard, like he's had some really great picks over the years. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. Like it seems like the Eagles always come away with great players. I mean, you got Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round, and he didn't he draft Mailata in the 7th round. I don't know if that was him, but they did get 7. Yeah, I think they did. I think he got Mailata in the 7th round. So, I mean, he's had some great drafts, and the Eagles are always one of the better teams in the NFL. So, I don't take this Nick Wright guy seriously. I think he's kind of a clown. So, I don't know. What any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think Howie Roseman does a good job in the draft, and I think he manipulates the system really well with how he's stockpiled picks. You know, it always seems like he's done a really nice job of adding picks, first rounders, day two picks. You know, I think he takes some risks. You know, like the giving up picks for some good players in the final years of their contract, like DeAndre Swift or uh, CD Deuce, Ducey, CJ Gardner Johnson, whatever you want to call him. He definitely will take some risks that way with trades and is aggressive, but I definitely think he does a good job of running the draft year in and year out.
Yeah, Slew saying David Tepper is an exciting GM. Tepper probably thinks he's the best GM. In fact, like I've seen him like listening to the show, be like, "Why didn't they mention me? I'm gonna spill drinks on these guys." So yeah, Corey saying any blue chip players to keep an eye on next year's draft class. We both have 2025 mock drafts on the site. So I mean, you could check them out and see if we have any similar players there. And in fact, we did a video last night on the 2025 draft, so you can, if you don't want to read. You know, I went over my 2025 mock draft too, so you can check that out. And then Mooch saying, Walt, I think the website crashed last year because of all the tabs you have open. Oh, great, thanks for taking my questions. Yeah, this is nothing, by the way. I've shown you guys before, and you guys, other people can vouch for this. This is Child's Play that you see on the screen here. These are 43 tabs. I have two other windows. The other window is 30 something tabs, but my main window is 84 tabs. And I know where everything is. So yeah, this is Child's Play, and the server is not hosted on my computer, so it didn't crash last year because of this. I know you're joking, but no, the server the website crashed last year because there was code on the site that was uploaded like in February, like 2 months before the draft, and like no one gave it a single thought. And then this line of code. It couldn't handle the traffic, and it just bogged everything down, and it crashed the site. And like no one knew what was wrong because this code was uploaded 2 months ago, and it was just not doing anything. And so they actually had to have ChatGPT kind of like diagnose it, and like it figured it out, but it figured out like way too late. And so the site was down the entire first round, and it was a disaster. It's kind of why we went to WordPress, to make sure all the code is streamlined and everything like that. And Charlie, I don't know about you, but I didn't notice the site slow down at all. Dennis, our developer, he told me that the site slowed down for like 30 seconds on day two. But that was it. And then he said he made an adjustment, and then it didn't slow down at all after that. So, yeah, I mean, the site ran great during the draft, so I'm happy with the results of it.
Yeah, I didn't see any issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so glad about that. DGen asking Carson Beck, the real or the jabroni? I mean, we Charlie, you have him second in your mock, I think. Is my right?
Yep, that's right.
I have him second too. So we are believers at the moment. And then Mooj saying, glad to have you back this year. What up, DGen? Big fan. This is the real DGen. I think that'd be pretty cool. So anyway, we have the last four. Cowboys drafting Tyler Guyton. I think it's an A+ because they moved down 5 spots and they picked up extra capital. They got their left tackle. I thought they could have easily taken him at 24, and they got him at 29. So I thought outstanding there. Nate Wiggins, you know, he's a little brittle. So like, he kind of fell according to some people, but this is kind of like where I thought he would go. Maybe it fills a big need. I just worry about his durability. Ricky Pearsall 31. I didn't see any mock drafts with Pearsall in the first round. I don't hate this pick. I give it a C because it fills the need, because the Niners are probably going to trade one of the receivers. And like, I don't hate Pearsall. I kind of like him as a prospect, but I feel like they could have traded down and gotten him. So maybe they should have done that trade with the Keon Coleman, or like, or with Leggett, I mean, that you were talking about earlier. And then the Bills could have gotten Coleman at 32, and then Leggett at 32. We touched on this earlier, how he visited the Panthers 4 times allegedly, but I like the pick because the Panthers need all the receiving help they can get. They needed to help Bryce Young as much as possible because he was so bad last year. And I think for the most part, they did a good job. They traded for Deontay Johnson. They drafted Leggett. They paid big money to 2 guards. Feels like the only thing they needed to address that they didn't was center. Also, Corbett's going to have to start at center. He's not an actual center. But yeah, for the most part, they addressed everything. Running back, Jonathan Brooks may not be able to play right away because of torn ACL, but feels like the Panthers are trending in the right direction. Just we'll have to see if Bryce Young can be salvaged. But yeah, Charlie, what are your thoughts on these 4 picks?
Yeah, I definitely felt that Dallas made a nice move there, trading down and getting the player they would have taken at 24. So whenever you do that, that's a win-win. And then I think Wiggins, that's a nice fit for him because he doesn't have to take on number 1 receivers at Baltimore with Marlon Humphrey. So I think for him, that's a good landing spot. But yeah, he's slight frame, and also there get times on tape where it just looked like he doesn't want to tackle. So he's going to have to change that for the NFL. Pearsall, like we hit on before, slight reach, but not horrible because he probably would have gone in the top half of the second round anyway. But I agree with Walt. They probably could have traded down, done the trade with Carolina, and still ended up getting him. And then for Carolina, I like that move up also because it gets the 5th-year option on the contract for Leggett. So that can end up being some nice money savings for them down the road. Hopefully, their hope would be they're going to sign him to a second contract. And I thought Dan Morgan had a really nice first draft for them as their general manager, and did a good job of getting value at the picks and in the early rounds with Leggett and Jonathan Brooks. Both of those guys can be really good help for Bryce Young. And I think Jatavian Sanders in the 4th round was a really nice value pick that could be helpful to Bryce Young as a rookie. So definitely, I thought that Carolina did a nice job, and Leggett was a good start.
Yeah, I forgot about Sanders. It's another position they addressed. So yeah, it's a good move for sure. Let's see here. Should the Falcons draft Shedeur Sanders next year if he's available? that would be the all-time worst decision, I think. But yeah, and then Corey's asking, could Ladd McConkey put up Keenan Allen type numbers for the Chargers? I don't know about Keenan Allen type numbers, but I think he could be a good receiver right away. For the Chargers, it's not like they have much outside of Joshua Palmer. So yeah, I thought it was a good pick. What do you think about the McConkey selection?
Yeah, I love McConkey, and I think that was a really nice pick for the Chargers. I mean, I don't think he'll put up that kind of production right away as a rookie. And the only thing that gives me any kind of pause with McConkey is he's just not very big, and he had durability issues at Georgia. So that's the big question mark. But when he's on the field, I think he's a dynamic, excellent route runner, separator, dangerous after the catch. So I think he'll be a real nice player for the Chargers as long as he stays on the field.
Okay, let's talk about the round 2 through 7 grades, Charlie. No, just kidding. We'll be here till like 5 a.m. if we do that. But no, thanks guys for watching, commenting, asking questions. It's all appreciated. Thank you so much to Jujenanon for the $5. John Sanders with $1.99. Let's hope the stock market turns around. And then Jerm with the $5. Really appreciate you guys. Please like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Visit the link in the description for the merch store. Charlie, do you want to plug anything?
Well, yeah, and for those that came a little late, we have the Why the Slide and Why Undrafted going up on the site right now. So we got those series back, and then of course we'll have the rookie forecast part of the season previews, and we'll have the draft awards coming up soon as well. So we'll have tons of more coming up on all these players and picks over the weeks to come here.
Yeah, tons of content at walterfootball.com, tons from Charlie. Like I said before, I love those why the slide and why undrafted. Look forward to those. When I see that email come in when you send them, I'm like actually open that up before. Usually I wait till like Ryan, our editor, posts it on the site just so I can see it live and then read it. But like like I said, I always look forward to that. So I open up the email that you send so I can see why those guys slide. And like I said, I always, I always try to guess why they slid. Corey says 20 more minutes, please. Have a good night, guys. Charlie has to take his kid to school tomorrow. So yeah, it's the early morning. And late night for me. I'm going to be working on the site till like 6 a.m. So, again, guys, thank you so much for the contributions and for watching and stuff like that. Really appreciate it. We're going to be back tomorrow around. Actually, not sure if this is going to be a 10:30 start or something like that. We have a guest on tomorrow who he has work in the evening, so it might the start time might be dictated by that. But we'll be back tomorrow for sure. And then Tom will be on Saturday, so looking forward to talking to him because I haven't talked to him in 2 weeks, so I have to see what he's up to. But yeah, thanks Charlie for coming on, and like Slu said, sharing your knowledge. Really appreciate it. Charlie is the best, so check out his content on the site. Charlie, I hope you have a great night and everyone as well. So I will talk to you tomorrow.
Take care, guys. Thanks for watching.